is continuation of swimwear cover up, and we are now working on the bell of the sleeve. Before we begin, we need to check if we have enough spaces to make the shell design. We need to have a pair of spaces all the way around. So let us mark this one. That can be a possible space there. It can either be a space or just a stitch. So let's see if we come up with a pair starting here. So we will count 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. So since we begin here, we ended up with 1. So we know that we have we have an odd numbered spaces and we need an even. So we are going to make this as a space where the hairpin is, so that we have an even number of spaces. So let's try that again and see if we come up with an even number. So this is now a space. We're gonna begin right at the hairpin. So 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. So okay, so we have an even number of spaces now. So make sure that you don't recognize that as a space. So the space is right there. So let me put a hairpin there so to remind me not to recognize that as a space. That is a space. So now we are going to start the foundation of the shell stitch. By making a single crochet into the next space. Like that. So that is the beginning single crochet right there. So chain 2, 1, 2, and single crochet on the next space. Chain 2, single crochet on the next space. Chain 2, single crochet on the next space. So we are going to repeat chain 2, single crochet on the next space until the end of the round. So I'll meet you there. So we are at the end of the round. So we chain 2 and single crochet on the next space. Then that's not a hole there, so chain 2 and single crochet on the next space. Then chain 2, single crochet on the beginning single crochet, which is marked. Let's see. And this is the end. So we'll check to see if we maintain that even total number of spaces. So let's count again. because we can adjust it at this point. So we're gonna start the count right where the hairpin is. 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 and 2. So we have an even numbered total spaces, and it will work with the design round 1 of shell stitches. By the way, there are many different variations of the shell stitch. It can either be only 2 double crochets, or it can be 3 with chain 1 in between. It can vary from chain 1 between the shells up to chain 5. So anyways, let's begin. Sorry about my puppy. She's in a barky mode this morning. So we slip stitch on the next chain 2 space or loop. So for simplicity, we'll just call it the chain 2 as a space. After slip stitch, we chain 2 and double crochet into the space. Chain 1, 2 double crochets into the same space. Chain 1, skip 1 space, and 2 double crochets on the next space. Chain 1, 2 more double crochets on the same space. So a set of chain 1 and 1 shell is made. So repeat. Chain 1, skip the next space, and 2 double crochets on the next space. Chain 1, 2 more double crochets on the same space to complete the shell. So repeat. Chain 1, skip 1 space, and 2 double crochets on the next space. Chain 1, 2 double crochets on the same space to complete the shell. And so keep repeating all the way around, and I'll meet you at the end of the round. After the last shell, we chain 1, skip 1 space, and slip stitch on the second chain of the beginning, chain 2. And this is the end of the round. So to begin the next round, slip stitch onto the next stitch and into the chain 1 space, then chain 2 to begin the round. So after making chain 2, then we double crochet into the chain 1 space of the shell, chain 1, and 2 double crochets into the same space. Chain 1 and 2 double crochets into the chain 1 space of the shell of next shell, chain 1 and 2 more double crochets on the same space of the shell. Repeat chain 1. I will just say shell on next shell, and when I say shell, we make this 2 double crochets on the next space of the shell, chain 1, 2 more double crochets on the same space of the shell. One shell is made, then chain 1, shell on next shell, and repeat. So I'll meet you at the end of this round. After the last shell, then we chain 1 and slip stitch on the second chain from the beginning, chain 2, and this is the end of round 2. Repeat round 2 after round 4. So I'll see you at the end of round 4. Round 5, the only difference is that we are going to make 2 chains between the shells. The shells are exactly made the same way. So we begin the shell by making chain 2, double crochet on the space of the shell, chain 1, 2 double crochets on the same shell, then chain 2, 1, 2, then shell on the next shell, chain 2 and repeat shell on the next shell and keep repeating all the way around, and I will meet you at the end of this round, which is round 5, and this ends exactly the same way round 4 ends. So I'll meet you after this round. So after the last shell, we chain 2, 1, 2, and slip stitch on the second chain of the beginning chain 2. And from row 6 to 7, repeat round 5. And I end mine on round 7. I don't want a very wide sleeve bell, but you can do what you want. You can continue and make it longer if you want to. It's all up to you. And so the skirt is going to be done exactly the same way as this.